Okay, so in the last lecture we discussed discrete time Fourier series and discrete time Fourier transform. So our earlier discussion was on that. So today we will start a new lecture on one of the another important transforms that we have in the area of signals and systems, and they are also used quite frequently. So the transforms that we will be discussing today are called as Laplace transform. So before starting this Laplace transform, can anyone tell me like why there is a need of using Laplace transforms? So first of all, before asking that question, can you tell me like on which type of signals these Laplace transforms will be applied on? Whether it's a continuous signal or discrete signal, I wanted to ask that. Anyone can answer this?
The continuous.
Right. So these type of Laplace transforms are actually applied on continuous time signals. And you also know that we have already studied that for the continuous time signals we have continuous time Fourier transform also. So we have CTFT also. CTFT, continuous time Fourier transforms to deal with continuous signals. So can anyone tell me like what is the good reason of having this Laplace transform when we already have continuous time Fourier transform? What is the point of using this new one? What is the advantage as compared to the continuous time Fourier transform? Anyone can answer this? Okay. So I think that
Sir,
yeah.
sir, like one benefit is like we use this Laplace transform in solving differential equations.
Yeah, yeah, that is different. See, the thing is, all these things, no, even in the continuous time Fourier transform, you can do that. If you can solve the differential equations by using the property that we had already discussed in Fourier transforms, like if you take the derivative of xt with respect to time, that is equivalent to j omega times, the signal in the frequency domain. So you can use there also for calculating the, solving the differential equations. We are not stopping you in doing that, but here what is the reason, like Laplace transforms are used even though you have continuous time Fourier transforms in your kitty. So I think you don't know that, right? If you know, let me know. Okay, so I think you people have studied this particular topic, but you have not understood the motivation behind the use of Laplace transforms, though you have studied it. So let's find out that motivation before going and solving these Laplace transforms. So the important thing is we should know the motivation why we are doing it. Until unless we do not know it, there is no point in learning that particular topic. So one of the important things, if you recall from our earlier lectures, is that there are some limitations of Fourier transforms in actually analyzing the signals and the systems. So, if you recall these limitations, then one of the important limitations that these signals, which are which we are actually using for calculating the Fourier transforms, is that a signal must be. Can anyone tell me what is that limitation? Okay, so a signal actually, in order to calculate the Fourier transform for any continuous time signal, the signal must be, sorry,
Periodic.
no, periodic is actually, it's a different story. The basic, if you go to Dirichlet conditions, if you recall that, so the most important question is that signal must be absolutely integrable. If you if you
Okay,
recall
yes.
that. You understand? So this is the one of the important conditions for for in order to calculate the continuous time Fourier transforms. And even for Fourier series also we discussed that. So the important thing is a signal must be absolutely integrable. So what happens now is, let us say if you have a signal which is like this t times ut. So if you have this signal, can anyone tell that can we calculate the Fourier transform of this signal? Can we calculate Fourier transform of this signal or not? See, the important thing is
No, no,
no,
no,
we
no.
cannot calculate the Fourier transform because if you take the absolute integral of this tut dt, it diverges because it's a ramp function and it keeps on increasing, and if you integrate this area, the area will continuously increase. So this particular signal which you have tut, the Fourier transform of this signal cannot be calculated because the inherent signal which is tut is diverging rather than having a absolute integrable property. So you cannot calculate the value of this signal because the ramp is diverging. So this is one of the important drawbacks of discrete. It's not a drawback. I will show you what exactly we are trying to do here. But the important point that has to be noted down here is that for continuous time Fourier transform evaluation, what you have to do is you have to actually consider these signals xt to be absolutely integrable. That is one of the important things. So what is Laplace transform then? So Laplace transform is nothing but it's an extension or generalization of these Fourier transforms. So Laplace transforms is nothing but it's an extension or generalization of Fourier transform. So it's a note that it's an extension and generalization. I will discuss all this in detail, but it's a extension of Fourier transforms. So in contrast, the Fourier transform is actually nothing but it's an by Fourier transform I'm saying continuous time Fourier transform. So Fourier transform is nothing but it's a special case or a limited view. I will show you what that limited view is. A special case or a limited view of Laplace transforms. So it's a Fourier continuous time Fourier transform is a special case of Laplace transforms. So the important takeaway, the important key takeaway point is, I am writing it over here, that is a signal that do not have a Fourier transform may still have Laplace transform. So that is one of the key takeaway points. That is a signal, if it is not having a Fourier transform, it still have a Laplace transform, and that Laplace transform is valid for certain range of transform variable. We will discuss all these points. No doubt will there will be no doubt when we finish it off. But you have to just keep this in mind that a signal, if it is not having a Fourier transform, then it still can have a Laplace transform, and this Laplace transform can is actually valid for certain range of transform variables. We will see what this certain range of transform variables is. It is let me give you a brief hint about it, that the certain range of transform variable means, by saying certain range means we are actually talking about ROC, region of convergence, and transform variable here in case of Laplace transforms will be S. So just keep this in mind that this thing is very important. That is, a signal, if it is not having a Fourier transform, it still can have a Laplace transform, but it is valid only for certain range, which is the ROC that you are actually calculating while doing these Laplace transform things, and the variable that we are actually looking for is S. So the thing is, so the important takeaway point is this one, and the second thing that we want to emphasize here is that if Fourier transform exists, if it exists, then it can be obtained from Laplace transform also. If Fourier transform exists, it can be easily obtained from Laplace transforms also, as I have told you that Fourier transform is actually a special case, or you can say what I wrote here. Yeah, I have written here, right? Special case of basically, or a limited view of Laplace transform. So you can, if you calculate Laplace transform, you can easily move to Fourier transform. There is no problem. But the reverse is generally not true. That is, if you have, Laplace transform, it doesn't mean that, it will always have a Fourier transform. So, now the important question is, what is Laplace transform? So Laplace transform is basically for a signal xt is defined as x of s equal to minus infinity to infinity x of t e to the power e to the power minus st dt. So this is basically a definition for the Laplace transform, and here s is nothing but it's an independent variable, which I was just telling you before this definition. It's an independent variable and can be a complex number. So it's an independent variable and it's a complex number. So, so the important thing is, you see this definition. The definition is like this. What you are doing now, you are actually multiplying xt with an exponential function e to the power minus st. This is one of the important key takeaway points here when you are calculating the Laplace transform. So we will understand that what role this e to the power minus st is playing when you are multiplying it with xt. We will see that in a minute, but I just wanted to tell you one thing, that this s is basically a complex number, so it can be easily represented on a complex plane where you have this sigma. So s is basically nothing but sigma plus j omega, as we are telling that s is a complex number. So let sigma be the real part of that complex number and omega be the imaginary part of that complex number. So we have sigma here and j omega this side. So if you have any point here in this complex number, that is nothing but sigma 1, that is the real part of this, and j omega 1, that is the imaginary part of this. So this is nothing but a specific s1 having a real part sigma 1 and its complex part j omega 1. So this is basically the typical representation of s in the complex plane. So now we will understand what is the importance of using exponential functions along with the signal xt. So what we can do now is, let us write this st in Cartesian format, that is, let us replace s by sigma plus j omega to understand fully that what role this exponential function is playing. That is what, when we are multiplying this by xt, how it is possible that you are able to calculate the Laplace transform for the signals which are actually, for which Fourier transforms are not available. So we want to see that magic, that why this e to the power minus st is helping us in calculating Fourier transforms of tut also, even though Fourier transform of no Laplace transform of tut, even though we cannot calculate the Fourier transform of that. So let us do that. So what I will do is, I will replace s by sigma plus j omega, and that is what you can do is, now there is nothing new about it. So what you do is, you write it like this. It is sigma plus j omega t dt. So I'm doing nothing but I'm just replacing s by sigma plus j omega, which is the Cartesian format representation of s. So now one important takeaway point here is, like, let us just take a small diversion from here. I'm just writing some more interpretations of this particular thing. I'm trying to derive some more interpretations for this. So let us say, if your real part of s, sorry, we cannot write like this, it's real part of s, which is sigma. So if this particular value of real part of s is fixed, let us say, and if you vary sigma, if you vary omega from minus infinity to infinity. So if you vary sigma from omega from minus infinity to infinity, can you tell me what will be the trajectory of the points on this complex plane? Can anyone tell me that if your real part of the s is fixed to, let us say, sigma 1, and if you vary omega from minus infinity to infinity, can you tell me what will be the locus or trajectory of all the points which actually satisfy this constraint? Can anyone tell? Any one of you? Okay, so the thing is, as you are saying that the real part of s is sigma 1, which is nothing but this value. This is a constant value. Now can anyone tell what will be the locus of this? So are you able to see the screen now?
Yes, sir.
So can you tell me where the signal got lost?
So you were just about to explain why we are using sigma plus j omega there, what some significance and importance.
So this particular slide was not explained. This one.
Yeah, this one was done.
Okay. After this, you want. I was here, right? So this one was not done, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So so now what we have done is, like, we replaced this S by sigma j omega. So we did this. So now we are trying to understand the significance of this exponential e to the power minus st. We wanted to understand that why this e to the power minus st is helping us in calculating the Laplace transform of this signal xt, which is actually divergent, and we are not able to calculate the Fourier transform of this particular signal xt. Then how this e to the power minus st, when multiplied with this xt, is helping us in calculating the Laplace transform. So we wanted to go and understand this. So what we have done is, before going there, I just wanted to ask you one thing, that if you are, if the real part of S is sigma 1, if the real part of S is sigma 1, and if your omega is actually varying from minus infinity to infinity, so can you tell me what will be the locus of the points on this complex plane? Anyone?
So can you repeat?
So the question is, if your real part of this S, real part of S means sigma, and imaginary part of S means omega. So what I am saying is, if your real part of S is fixed, let us say a fixed value of sigma 1, and you vary omega from minus infinity to infinity. So what are the all locus points on this complex plane? Like, where they will lie? Anyone can answer? It's very easy. There is nothing.
Sir, it will be a vertical line.
Yes, yes. So it will be a vertical line like this. So here, your omega will be minus infinity, and here your omega will be plus infinity. So the important key to this will come again. So that's why I'm trying to introduce it here. So the important thing is, as you vary from omega minus infinity to infinity for a fixed value of sigma 1, note here sigma 1 is fixed. So in that case, all your points or locus of points will be a vertical line. So keep this in mind. We will come back to this again. So now we have this. So let me copy this. So what we are doing is, we are actually replacing S with the corresponding Cartesian coordinates, that is sigma plus j omega. So that's why we have this expression here. So now I am just repeating it again, this side, for easy convenience. So now we have this here. So now what I can do is, I can write it like this: minus infinity to infinity x of t e to the power minus sigma t, and then you have minus j omega t dt. So can you tell me now that what this is? Can anyone tell? Like, can you correlate it with uh, continuous time Fourier transform? Anyone? So if you see here, this particular signal, right? So this is nothing but Fourier transform, that is continuous time Fourier transform of xt sigma t. Will it be or not? So now the Fourier transform of the signal xt, when you multiply it with by e to the power minus sigma t, the combined signal, if you take the Fourier transform of that, that is actually equivalent to the Laplace transform. So this is one of the key takeaway points. And another key takeaway point is, let me write one more thing. I have made a mistake. So here let us say we have sigma 1, because I am keeping that sigma 1 constant. So here also you have sigma 1. Let us say we have this. So what I am doing, I am keeping the value of the real part of s as constant, which is sigma 1. So what it is showing is that is the Laplace transform of the signal xt is nothing but it's a Fourier transform of signal xt multiplied by the exponential e to the power minus sigma 1 t. That is one of the key takeaway points. And another key takeaway point in terms of the visualization, if you want to see in terms of the visualization, what it means is, you have this plane where you have sigma and j omega, and I told you for a fixed value of sigma 1 you have this locus. This is the locus of all the points. So what is the Laplace transform? Laplace transform is basically of this particular trajectory actually. So this Laplace transform is nothing but it's a calculation of calculation for this particular trajectory. So if you take xt multiplied with exponential of e to the power minus sigma 1 t, so what you get is the Laplace transform xs. So if you take Laplace transform of this trajectory, this locus, which is this vertical line, so that is actually identical to the Fourier transform of xt e to the power minus sigma t. So let me show you pictorial representation of this. So here you see we have a Laplace transform plot. So what I have done is there is a Laplace transform excess of some function which has some numerators like s plus 2, s plus 3. I cannot recall right now what that value is. So if you see that excess is, let us say, some s plus pole p2 and s plus pole p2, something like this. We have a numerator and a denominator, which is actually the excess. So what I have done is I have plotted that here for various values of sigma and j omega. So you can, if you can see here, let me change the colors, maybe you are not able to see it properly. Just a minute. So now if you can see here, this particular this particular plot, which is you are observing here, this particular plot is nothing but it's basically axis. So this is the plot of axis. And now the important part is, if you bisect this line, because this particular thing is sigma equal to 0. This particular thing is sigma equal to, sorry, this is basically sigma and this is j omega axis. This is sigma and this is j omega axis. So now when you take a cut over here like this, so this basically line, this line which you have here is actually a sigma equal to 0 line. If you can see here, this particular cut, if you are taking, it's a sigma equal to 0 line. So once you take this cut and calculate the values of various values of xs at omega ranging from minus infinity to infinity, what you will get is, you will get this shaded yellow, shaded green type of thing, like this one. This is the one which you will get when you have a fixed value of sigma, which is 0, and you are taking a cut on this Laplace transform plot, or basically the sigma and j omega plot. So once you have this, as you can see now, it's from 2D version you can easily observe this, that if you cut this here, you will get some picture which is a shaded one given over here. So what you can do is, you can plot a one-dimensional plot of that over here, which is given on the bottom. So I am taking a slice actually. When you take a slice of sigma equal to 0, at sigma equal to 0, you will get this curve, and here omega is actually ranging from minus infinity to infinity. And the important thing is, these magnitudes here are basically now Fourier transform of the signal. Why Fourier transform of the signal? Because if you see here, what I have told you is that the Fourier transform of xt e to the power minus sigma 1 t is actually the Laplace transform. So if you want to make Fourier transform of xt same as the Laplace transform, what you can do is you can make sigma 1 0. So if your sigma 1 is 0, then what happens is, this is gone, this particular thing is gone, and now what happens is you are calculating Fourier transform of the signal which you already used to carry out, and that is equal to your Laplace transform. But when it happens at sigma 1 equal to 0. So that means if you take the slice of this particular plane at sigma 1 equal to 0, then whatever projection that you will get, whatever values that you will get for varying omega from minus infinity to infinity for that particular value of sigma equal to 0 is actually the Fourier transform. But let us say if you shift your sigma by zero point 0.5 to the right, then what will happen is your sigma, this was your earlier sigma which is 0 here. So this line was sigma equal to 0 earlier. Now you shifted it by zero point 0.5 to the right. Then what happens is, then you will see this is the plot that you will get here. So that is actually nothing but Fourier transform of the signal xt with e to the power minus 0.5 t. So here your sigma is zero point 0.5 now. So that's why this when you calculate the Fourier transform of this is basically nothing but equal to the Laplace transform. So you have to understand that when you are taking the Laplace transform, which is a generalized version of Fourier transform, as I was telling, why it is called as generalized version? Because by varying the value of sigma, you are actually calculating multiple Fourier transform of this signal xt by with by using this particular exponential which is attached to it at xt. But if you keep sigma equal to 0, then what happens is your Laplace transform becomes equal to your Fourier transform, because as you can see the definition where sigma becomes equal to 0, this goes away and you have the definition for Fourier transform by looking at this. So this is basically the concept of Laplace transform, and why we are doing it, because if you have this signal xt which is diverging, this signal xt is diverging, let us say like this, then what happens is when you apply xt with e to the power minus sigma 1 t, then what happens is it is actually this diverging signal is multiplied with this exponential function which is like this. So what happens is when you multiply this signal with this signal, your ultimate signal which is xt e to the power minus sigma 1 t will actually go down and it will converge. So the idea is to make this signal xt convergent by multiplying it with exponential which is e to the power minus sigma t, so that the ultimate signal should be convergent and absolutely integrable when you multiply this problematic function xt with this exponential function. So if you have any questions in this explanation, let me know. So now I hope you understand that why why there is a need of using Laplace transforms as compared to using the um, using the Fourier transform. So if you have any questions related to this understanding, let me know. Otherwise, we will move forward. Okay, so if you do not have any questions, so let me give you one question here. Let us say if you have xt as ut, let us say. So can you tell me that what is the Laplace transform of this signal? So what is Laplace transform? It is nothing but minus infinity to infinity xt e to the power minus st dt. So I'll give you few seconds to calculate this because it's a very easy question. So Let me know what will be the answer. I will wait for 2 3 minutes.
So 1 upon s.
Yeah, it's 1 upon s. So how many of you are getting that? So will it be 1 upon s for all the values of s, or like what? Can you tell me the specific details? Because you know that
Sir,
this.
for
Yeah, yeah.
like for 0 to infinity, it will be 1 upon x.
Hmm. Will zero be allowed?
The zero.
Will zero be allowed?
No, sir, 0. Ah, right. 0 will be
No, sir.
undefined from 1 to infinity.
So no, it's not 1 to infinity. It is something close to zero, but is not touching zero. Any value which is, because it's a continuous thing, so we can say anything which
Strictly
is,
greater than 0.
yeah, strictly
Like,
greater than zero. So the
and,
yeah.
and for s less than or equal to 0, it will be like for because the signal becomes 0 after when it is less than t less than 0, therefore s less than 0 uh, won't be any positive integer. It will be
Okay, so let me explain you, because somewhere or the other there is some subtle differences from your explanation, which actually there is some problem in that. So let me explain this question so that we all will be on the same page.
E
So
raised to
yes,
st upon s.
no. The answer is 1 upon s. So, so let us say you have this Laplace transform, right? So we already know this. So it is x of t e to the power minus st dt. So what you do is, you when you replace it by ut, you know that ut is between 0 to infinity. So once you put that, ut can be taken away because you have already incorporated ut in the limits. So it is gone. So it's 1 here, and then you have e to the power minus st dt. So now what you do is, just for your explanation, because later on you can, avoid doing this, but for starting the things out, it's better to, go from scratch. So here you have 0 to infinity. Let us replace s by the coordinates. So it will be sigma plus j omega t dt. So I have replaced it by coordinates as sigma and j omega. So this is what we had done earlier also. So now we have this. So we can write it as minus. We can take the integration. So it will be, the answer will be this. This is your answer. But now the limits are from 0 to infinity. So now you have limits going from 0 to infinity. So let us do one thing. Let us, break this into two parts. One is sigma t, another one is j omega t, and then you have, sigma plus j omega at the bottom. And you have limits 0 to infinity going over here. So now the important thing is the decision on this value of sigma, because if your sigma, maybe you can, all will be, all will be on the same decision, that if your sigma is greater than 0, let us say, then will this integral be solvable or not, if your sigma is greater than 0?
yes, sir, definitely because
Yes.
what you were trying
Okay.
like to establish.
So but if your sigma is less than 0, then what will happen?
Won't be
Then the integration like it won't be possible because the signal will be divergent.
Yes. So when you take sigma less than 0, what happens is this particular portion of the signal becomes divergent, and then it's a problem, because the values of omega you are varying from minus infinity to infinity. So at omega, when omega values are minus infinity, then this will create a problem, that you have a divergent signal multiplied together. So in order to ensure that your signal is always convergent, what you have to do is, you have to maintain this sigma greater than 0 always. And sigma greater than 0 always means it's a real part of S which is always greater than 0. So in order to calculate this integral at t equal to infinity value, the constraint is that your S has to be always greater than 0. This is very important. So now what happens is, now you can solve it. Then the first value will be 0, and the second value will be minus sigma plus j omega when you keep t equal to 0 here. And for that you have answer as 1 over sigma plus j omega, which is nothing but s. But the constraint is that your real part of s has to be greater than 0 so that you can calculate the limits for t equal to infinity properly by putting it here. So this is very important. So here you have, this is the region where you have, sigma 0. So you have to be greater than 0, it cannot be equal to 0. So this region is basically nothing but region of convergence, which we say. And this region of convergence is nothing but, it's a area where you can actually calculate the Laplace transform for the divergent signal xt. So this is what I have written in the earlier, uh, def, earlier things, where you have, this thing, that is certain range. So this is what I was telling, that the Laplace transform is valid for certain range. It is not valid for all the range of transform variable s. So here it is not valid for this region, because in this region what happens is it becomes divergent, and it's not a and you cannot calculate the Laplace transform. So this is basically one of the key concepts that separates Laplace transforms from Fourier transform. So let us have one more question before we close this class. So if you have xt as ut minus tau, let us say, so can you tell me what will be the answer now for this particular thing, where xt is ut minus tau? Can you tell me what will be the answer for this particular thing, if I want to calculate the Laplace transform for this?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, it will be e raised to minus s tau upon s.
Okay, good. So it is e to the power minus s tau upon s. That is very simple. You can do this integration. Because integration now will be from tau to infinity, because you have a unit step which is starting from tau. So that's why the limits will be changed and you can calculate it. But can you tell me what will be the constraint on the s? If you do that same exercise by replacing s by sigma and j omega, and then you do that exercise, what will be the constraint on s so that this particular answer will come out? Because normally this signal is not convergent, right? So we have to find out a region where this particular signal xt is convergent. That's why we call it as region of convergence. So I wanted to know what is the ROC for this signal to survive.
The real part of s should be greater than tau.
Not tau, it is greater than 0. So your real,
Again 0.
yes, so real part of s is again here greater than 0. So what you can see now is that even for shifted time signals which are t minus tau, the real part of s is again greater than 0, is the main constraint for which this signal will be evaluated. So this actually gives you a clear cut idea that why Fourier transform is a generalized version of, or not generalized, it's a special case of Laplace transform. Why it is a special case? Because you are evaluating it at a sigma equal to 0 line. But for other values of sigma, the Laplace transform will be Fourier transform of xt multiplied by the exponential to the power minus sigma 1t. So that's why we call Fourier transform as a special case of Laplace transform. And Laplace transforms are evaluated for the specific region where these unbounded signals like ut, they will have a convergent behavior. So if you move this side, this ut will again become divergent, because exponential will not play any role in bringing down this ut when you multiply it with this ut. So this actually finishes off with the concept of Laplace transform, but we will discuss more about its properties and other subtle details and examples, and we will see what more ideas we can borrow from this new transform which we are discussing today. Okay, so let me take the attendance, and then we can close this class today.